The story begins with our hero telling us that we start our lives by going to school, which makes us want to end it all. Then we become adults and start going to work, which makes us want to end it even more. This is exactly why he wants to enjoy the life of a NEET, meaning a youth who is not in education, employment, or training. Now, we move to the present day where we learn that our hero's name is Kishibe. He is in the office of his president who runs over a massive company. However, it looks like he has handed in his resignation. In a hilarious twist, we see his boss bowing down to him and begging him to stay on in the company. Basically, the president does not know anyone who is as valuable and experienced as Kishibe, which is why he's ready to even give him a raise. The raise in question is as high as 200,000 yen. But even then, Kishibe is not ready to take the bait. The president tries one last attempt by telling our hero he can clock out 2 hours early at 3 p.m. But nothing is going to change his mind. Eventually, Kishibe says that he wants to live the life of a NET, and then he hands in his official resignation. He does not seem to care about his boss's tears and says that he has waited too long for this moment. As he exits the building and walks down the street, Kishibe continues to sing about how he has now become a NET. The singing goes on for a while, and then our hero tells us that the average savings of a person in their 30s is around 5 million yen. However, he has saved a lot more than that, and the amount is a ridiculous 200 million yen. Of course, this is because Kishibe would work overtime right since he started working at his company right until his very last day today. On top of that, he also took odd jobs during his free time in order to make as much money as he possibly could. However, it seems to have paid off for Kishibe, as he can live the rest of his life however he wants. His dream of living a selfish life will finally come true, but as he says this, he hears someone calling out to their child named Toshi. It turns out that a little boy is on the road trying to collect his ball, but he has found himself in front of a speeding truck. Kishibe notices this and all the dreams he had about being a NET flash before his eyes. However, he knows what a good man would do, and he decides to act fast. Our hero rushes to the boy and pushes him out of the way, but this means that he will now be crushed by the truck. As he breathes his last, Kishibe wonders if his dreams are going to be crushed so easily. After all, this is not supposed to be what he had worked so hard for his whole life. Having said that, he has at least saved a life, and this could be his chance to visit heaven. He hopes to find himself in the NET paradise, and then he finds himself in front of a goddess who has put on a mustache as an act. She asks our hero if he has realized what's going on over here, but he does not seem to understand the situation. The goddess then introduces herself, but her ridiculous appearance clearly confuses Kishibe. It takes him a moment to settle in, but then he figures that he might be reborn into another world. Before the goddess can even respond to him, he says that he surely wants to go ahead with it. This would be great fun for Kishibe, and just as he had wished, the goddess says that she is thankful to him for saving the boy's life. With our hero's unmatched skills, it would be a good option for him to explore other worlds. This is exactly what he wanted, and his patience is running out, so he says that he wants to go to another world and live as a NET there. He has no desire to work and wishes to be a rich person who can just laze around all the time. The goddess is surprised to hear this, so she asks our hero if he is actually a total piece of trash. He says that he is the best of them all, and even starts to pour some tea for the goddess as if she is the one in his home. Now, Kishibe says that he only wants to live with a healthy mind in his next life. After all, he did tons of jobs he did not want to in his past life, and ended up saving 200 million yen in only 8 years. Now, Kishibe hands over the tea to the goddess, and this seems to intrigue her. This leads her to declare that our hero will be sent to another world where he will experience absolute paradise. She even goes on to call it the Net heaven, and this is too good to be true for Kishibe. That's when the goddess reveals that our hero will be surrounded by beautiful babes all the time, but he will be living the life of a useless freeloader. Kishibe tries to set the record straight by saying he is not interested in this kind of life. He wants to use the money that he owns and not be pampered by other people. The goddess does not seem to care about his words and says that her special power is to reincarnate people. She begins with her process, but Kishibe tries to explain to her once again that he wants to live freely and independently. However, as he says this, he wakes up as a girl inside a massive room, almost as if he has been reincarnated as a princess. Kishibe doesn't believe what has happened to him, so he looks around to figure out his surroundings. It doesn't take long for him to give in to his own intrusive thoughts, and he checks out his own assets in the process. After a brief moment of silence, our hero tells us that he will have to inspect his new body a bit further, and that can only mean one thing if you're a boy who now has a girl's body. 3 days have passed by, and we still don't know what's happened here with Kishibe. We see a whole range of maids and butlers lined up in front of Kishibe's room, and they refer to him as princess. They have brought him some breakfast, but say that they will leave it in front of his door. This means that Kishibe has not shown himself to his servants ever since he reincarnated as a princess, and has been living a life of quarantine. Even the butlers and maids are a bit confused, because they don't really remember the princess being this way. Secluding herself from everyone else is extremely unusual, but it looks like Kishibe has taken over now. In conclusion, he has become a Net winner, as he can do as he pleases without having to worry about being answerable to anyone. Basically, what the goddess had told Kishibe was true, as he has been reincarnated as the daughter of the king who rules over this country. Every child would dream of living in a fantasy world filled with swords and magic, and for Kishibe, he also gets to enjoy the benefits of a Net life. Eating without working is an experience he has never had before, but it's a good feeling. Now, Kishibe falls into his bed and laments that he feels like a big loser. Of course, it's not like he has a problem with it, because this is what he had asked the goddess to give him. He is thankful for it as well, because he can see that this princess has been taken care of very well. He can feel and sense her body, which gives the impression that it is groomed exactly like a princess. Even her pajamas are made of the nicest fabric ever, so nothing can go wrong for Kishibe. Now, we learn that the name of this princess is Iris Kurita Kueichizu, and the name of this kingdom is Kueichizu. Now, our hero suddenly senses something lower down in his new body, and he already knows what it is. His intrusive thoughts have led to his undergarments getting stained by some of his kitty water, and this is bad news. Of course, some maids and butlers must be washing Kishibe's clothes, so he hopes that they don't notice the stains he's leaving behind on these undergarments. The cause of this is excessive solo playing as part of Kishibe's desire to understand his new body. Either way, this is not what a lady of the royal family should be doing. So Kishibe hopes that the original princess forgives him for his shady actions. The main question for our hero now is regarding where the real princess has actually gone. It's a known fact that Kishibe has reincarnated as the princess, but has he taken her place, or has he sent her somewhere else? This could mean that the princess is now in Kishibe's body, but he had passed away in his original world, so it does not seem likely. There is another thing that's been bothering our hero, but before he can go on to explain this to us, he gets interrupted by someone who is at the door. It's a maid girl who screams at the princess with relief and joy as she charges into the room without even knocking or asking for permission to be let inside. This maid girl does not seem to have any kind of boundaries between her and the princess as she openly grabs Kishibe and almost pins her to the bed. Our hero is a bit taken aback by this energy, but the maid girl tells her not to worry because she is holding on to her. Kishibe laments that a worried person has arrived to the scene, and he does not want to deal with it because it will only lead to a lot of drama. The name of this maid girl is Kushia, and she happens to be the personal attendant of the princess. From the looks of it, and does not only hope to be a maid, but also a lover girl of the princess. This means that the two girls were probably having a sneaky affair behind closed doors before our hero came into the picture. One thing is for sure, and that is in love with Iris, and it looks like she has not slept for a very long time. Kishibe asks the maid girl when was the last time she had slept, but his tone and manner of addressing her is different compared to how Iris would speak to her, and is a bit upset to hear this. But she does answer the princess by saying it was 5 days ago. The maid girl wants to add more to this statement, but hearing 5 days is more than enough to shock our hero. He admits that even he has a limit of 4 days when it comes to staying awake, as he could recall from his time in Japan. He then tells us that he has been feeling a bit odd ever since he reincarnated into this world. This brings his attention to the way of life inside this castle. The working environment is on a whole other level, especially if you consider the kind of stuff the maids have to do over here. Kishibe is reminded of his own struggles back in his own company by looking at these maids. As a matter of fact, he even believes that these maids could be having it worse than he did. After all, serving a bunch of pampered royals is no easy task, and it leads our hero to feel tired by just thinking about it. He has had enough of this stress, so he lets go of Anne's arms and falls to the bed. He feels that he might lose his own life if he doesn't get any rest right now, and even sighs while distancing himself from Anne. This is horrible for the maid girl because she did not expect the princess to behave this way with her, and is filled with a sense of anxiety and caution because the princess has been very distant from her lately, in all regards, and feels like a complete stranger to Iris since 3 days ago, which is probably when Kishibe decided to live the life of a loner in her body, and can only come up with one conclusion, which is that the princess may actually hate her. The maid girl goes on about this thought a few times because she can't believe that she could be thrown to the side by the same girl whom she loves. On the other hand, we have our hero who is very much awake and does not know what to do in order to handle this situation. For now, what he does want to stop is the kind of work that is not at all necessary for him. For example, he does not want to bathe him every single day, because this is something that he can clearly do by himself. Now, our hero tells the maid girl exactly what he feels, but this does no good to him and begins to cry out of the fear of being rejected. She has come to the conclusion that her lover girl is avoiding her for no good reason, and it leads to a rather hilarious sequence of events, wherein Anne carelessly gets up from the bed and struts away from the room like a rejected pet. Kishibe has no problem with this as he watches the maid girl exit the room, and then he is left alone with his thoughts once again. Seeing Anne's feelings sure is a lot for him to take in, but he wants to be honest with us and says that it would not be a good thing for the maid girl to continue her affair with the princess as long as Kishibe is inside her body. The real issue for our hero is that he has a personal maid around him all the time, and she is ready to do all his work for him. This is not the kind of lifestyle he used to live back in Japan, and he feels guilty about it too. Of course, he knows how hard it is to try so hard and get so far, but in the end, it doesn't really matter because he wants to live his new life his own way. As he thinks back to his past life, Kishibe drops his princess face into the water to gain some fresh perspective. That's when an idea strikes him, which is that he should take advantage of his position as a princess and try to change the working environment of the castle. Now, he does not know if this is a good thing to do, because he would technically be going against the very same rules he wanted to set for himself in front of the goddess. However, he is not going to let others suffer because of him, and he vows to get rid of this castle's horrible work environment. As he stands up in a heroic pose while taking a bath, something comes to our hero's attention. It's none other than his own body, which is actually the curvy body of the princess. Seeing it is more than enough to awaken Kishibe's intrusive thoughts, so he quickly recedes back into the water before doing anything else. This is when he remembers that he is still a man, so he needs to be more careful of his manners when he tries to act like the princess. Now, we are taken immediately to a flashback where the goddess with the fake mustache is still making fun of Kishibe for talking about his intrusive thoughts. She mocks him for being a shady man with shady intentions, but he tries to explain to her that he is not that kind of boy. The goddess says that she can bet anything on the fact that Kishibe will try to explore his body, which has already been proven to be true. However, our hero tries to reason with her by saying he does not care if he is reborn as a man or a woman. Once again, the goddess pays no attention to the words he's saying, and she declares that she has already decided to reincarnate Kishibe as a woman. Our hero points out yet again that this goddess needs to be a bit more serious and actually listen to the people she's reincarnating. Now, we are back to the castle's bath where Kishibe is bathing himself as Iris. Of course, he wishes to explore his body some more, just as he has been doing every single night in this fantasy world. Before going ahead with it, he considers the consequences of doing naughty things with someone else's body. His arm begins to move as if it has a life of its own, and we can see Kishibe in his true male form telling himself not to do such a thing. However, it doesn't take long for him to give in to his intrusive thoughts, and he begins to embark on a solo mission while still inside the bath. There is one last attempt where he tells himself that only a trashy man would continue to do something like this, but the fact that he has not been with a woman in 8 years due to his several jobs overpowers all kinds of morality. With everything said and done, our hero decides to do it after all, and he says sorry to the princess for making such lewd use of her body. He asks for forgiveness because these are the instincts of a shady man. The solo mission begins exactly as Kishibe would have liked it to, but in the middle of his session, someone sneakily enters the bath. It is none other than the maid girl and, who clearly can't seem to let go of her secret lover girl, as expected, and is shocked to see the princess in such a vulnerable and sensitive position. She gasps upon this sight, and it alerts our hero, but it is a bit too late for him to hide what he has been doing until now. Of course, Kishibe wants to know what and is doing here in the first place, but he has been caught in the middle of an unspeakable act, so he needs to do something fast. He needs a lie to sort out this situation because he will have to maintain the honor of the princess at any cost. In a hopeless resort, Kishibe acts as if he is itchy and says that he is scratching all over his body. However, that is most definitely not the case, and the look on Anne's face says it all. Our hero asks her what's wrong, and then she instantly says that this person is not the princess. It comes as a shocker to Kishibe, and shouts it out one more time with tears in her eyes. She says this because Iris would never kick her out of the room or ever think about hurting her feelings. The most disturbing fact, though, is that the princess would never go on a solo mission by herself without and in front of her. This may be a bit too much of information for Kishibe, but we need to understand Anne's feelings as well. The maid girl gives us some more spicy details by stating the princess would always make her feel good, and then she does what Kishibe has been fearing all this time. She takes off her maid clothes and enters the bath, after which she gets a bit too close and personal to Kishibe. Things are heating up for sure, and our hero does not know what to do over here, so he only looks on cluelessly. This causes a brief moment of panic for him, and shoots her shot by locking lips with the princess. With that, the maid girl urges Kishibe to get back to normal. as she believes that he is Iris, who has just been under some kind of odd spell, and goes on to do more unspeakable things, and she says that she wants the princess to be with her exactly like how she used to be until Kishibe took possession of her body. Of course, our hero is wondering what kind of job requires the princess and her maid girl to have a shady affair. But he is in too deep and says she wants him to make her happy again. It's a hilarious scene as Kishibe clearly has no idea of how he is going to get out of this mess. What he does not realize, though, is that things are only going to get a whole lot worse for him. Elsewhere, we see a little girl yawning away and walking through the hallway. She comments that she is not able to get proper sleep, and she would like to be next to her sister, who is very far from her room. This can only mean one thing, which is that this little girl is supposed to be the younger sister of Iris. Even she has no idea of what has actually happened to the princess, and she is growing restless because she has not come back from her bath yet. Now, the younger sister heads towards the bathroom, where we can hear and telling Kishibe that her bite will remind him of the passionate times they have spent together. Of course, he does not want to partake because of his own guilty conscience, but then we see the younger sister also walking in on them. At first, she wonders why her sister is taking such a long bath, but then she notices the unspeakable things that Anne and her are doing to each other. This shocks the little sister, as she cannot believe that Iris is being stolen from her by the maid girl. This has led to a rather interesting turn of events, and then we move to an odd room where someone is watching Kishibe's life on a TV set. She comments that it is total chaos out there for him, and she seems to be enjoying what she is seeing. As we notice the shocked faces of the girls on the television screen, we realize that the person watching them is none other than the goddess with the fake mustache. She smiles and says that things have only just begun for our hero with N. After all, since he had asked her for the ultimate NET life, she is going to give it to him with the harem plan that she has drawn out for him. Either way, it looks like Kishibe is going to have a lot on his hands moving forward, and even the goddess is excited to see how this story will unfold. Now, we don't exactly see what happens to our hero after he gets caught with the maid, but we do see him relieving himself on the toilet. He doesn't have to worry about sitting down to do his business because his indoor plumbing dictates that he has to do it this way. Even so, there is a troubled look on his face, and rightly so. He laments that even though he has now turned 21 years of age in this world, his body as a young girl is still unable to keep up with him. He is basically talking about how he should be having soft pillows based on his age, but is left with nothing more than a flat screen. In a way, it's good because who knows what all Kishibe would have done if he had the gift of giant melons. Anyway, he wonders if this is what reincarnation is really supposed to feel like, and thinks back to all the memories he's had while in this new body of his. After he washes his hands, he tells us that it's rather amazing for all the toilets to be made of gold over here. Truly is the ultimate luxury, but he still has something else to deal with as he walks into his room. It's the little sister of the princess who is in bed, but clearly traumatized by what she has just seen. She seems to be asleep, but Kishibe has to figure out what he is to do with her now that his apparently secret affair with and has been caught. Now, we learn that the little sister is not asleep but is rather unconscious, as Kishibe puts a cold, wet towel on her face. Now, we learn that the girl's name is Herta Rosetta Rose, and she is the younger sister of Iris, who is only 15 years old. Rose is supposed to be tough and mentally strong despite her young age, as we can see a flashback to when she handed off the eel and melon dish to Kishibe simply because she did not like the dish. Things have changed, however, as she has caught our hero in the middle of a shady session with his own maid girl. As we saw the last time, Rose was shocked upon seeing this, and she seemed to have fainted after screaming for a bit. This obviously caused Kishibe and Anne to panic, so they did whatever they could to make the younger sister feel better. Now, our hero is next to Rose in bed, but he is extremely worried and has no idea what to do next. He does admit that he feels sorry for Rose because after seeing what her own sister was doing, it could mean that her own preferences might get twisted moving forward. She is at a delicate age right now anyway, but Kishibe tells himself that it's not like this was his fault. He himself is a victim here, as he did not expect and to do the things she did. In general, he finds and to be an extremely weird maid, even considering the fact that she is in love with the princess. While he understands the need and desire to take care of the woman she loves, Kishibe still feels that and is overdoing it by a lot. Things such as washing his body constantly and combing his silky, golden hair is a bit too incessant. On top of that, the maid girl is relentless when it comes to cleaning the castle to the point where everything is spotless. This is typical of a strong workaholic nature, and it can drive anyone insane. Kishibe reveals to us that he had heard the maids over here work from 4 in the morning right till 1 in the night, which only gives them a maximum of 3 hours of sleep. Simply considering that alone is a rather brutal timeline. What's worse is that he realizes and had confessed to not sleeping for 5 days straight, which is not human behavior. At this rate, it is obvious that the maid girl is going to lose her life due to overworking. This is not at all acceptable, even for a person like N, whose only fault is obsessive love. As Kishibe looks upon Rose in bed, he laments that the current work environment in the castle is a bit too much for anyone to handle, and he should do something about reducing the work hours. At first, he considers changing the routine to Japan's standard 8 hours a day, but he feels that even this might be too much for a normal person. Our hero's inner salaryman awakens, and he remembers how good he had it when he became a treasured asset of his company. He would only have to work 4 hours a day and he would be making as much as 400,000 yen per month for it. Being able to go out freely as much as he wanted to was also another boon he received from his company. These would be nice things, but it looks like Kishibe is being super passionate about the maids because he knows of his own struggles as an overworked salaryman. There's another benefit in this for our hero, which is that if he is able to reduce N's workload, then she won't have to pay too much attention to him unnecessarily. At least this is what he's hoping for, because if the maid girl is in love with the princess, then it will not matter how much free time she has. With no other option in his mind, Kishibe decides to go ahead and meet the manager of the maids to talk this thing out properly. He wonders if being the maid manager would make this person the head maid or a supervisor of sorts. Either way, Kishibe hopes that he comes across someone who is normal and not a hopeless romantic like N. He has already had way too much of the extra love anyway. Now he moves out of the castle and into a small cottage sort of area, which looks like the dormitory for the maids. Kishibe opens the door and is surprised to see the horrible condition in which this place has been maintained. It looks almost as though the whole dorm is falling apart, but before Kishibe can make any further observations, he is approached by someone who clearly sounds happy to see him. It's an extremely cute and extra curvy maid babe who looks at Kishibe almost as if she also has shady intentions for him. From the looks of it, this person is the head maid and she comments that the princess has grown taller again, much to her dismay. The only thing in front of Kishibe is this maid girl's massive set of soft pillows, and he can't seem to take his eyes off them. As he tries to let out a few words, the head maid says that her pillows are a lot easier to eat when they're smaller, but they have gotten even bigger since the last time they met. Our hero is clearly confused by what is going on. But then the maid babe proceeds to give him a glimpse of heaven and says that it will be the usual for the princess today. Upon seeing such massive and soft pillows, Kishibe reacts almost as if he has seen the supreme celestial being. He does not understand why the maid babe is doing this though, so he tries to look for an answer. However, the maid babe reacts as if this is something that she and the princess do regularly, so it does not affect her as much. Now, we shift to Anhua is having some problems of her own. She knows that she messed up by doing shady things with the princess the other day, and then even got caught in the act by Rose. She feels sorry for having caused such an inconvenience, but there is nothing that can be done now to fix that, as a matter of fact, and worries that she might even get executed for what she has been doing to Kishibe because such acts are not at all endorsed by the kingdom. The problem for her, though, is not this issue, but the shady noises that are coming from the maid babe's room. She can hear someone else inside with the maid babe and overhears her saying that Kishibe should not be so negative. He should only be focusing on the positive, which any normal man would agree to, but our hero is no normal man. That's when An walks in on the maid babe doing unspeakable things to the princess, and this only sets her off even further. As expected, An loses her mind and starts crying again, because she can't believe that her secret lover is openly cheating on her. How is Kishibe going to handle this? And how many girls were actually in love with the princess? Like, Cher?